So I don't know how many Cob classes or Cob workshops or natural building workshops out there actually cover in detail the dynamics of roof ventilation, but I do in my classes because I've learned the importance of having good roof ventilation and what that means for the function and longevity of your structure. Whether it's a Cob structure, straw bale structure, or conventional structure, it doesn't really matter. Your roof ventilation is really extremely important, and it's something that's often, probably more than often, overlooked, especially within Cob workshops, I've noticed. So I'm going to show you here on this side, this is what I'd consider good roof ventilation, and then over here a couple different ways that you'll see it at most different Cob workshops or natural building style workshops. So let me talk about good roof ventilation here first. So here you'll see our basic Cob wall. Now this doesn't have to be a Cob wall. This could literally be any kind of wall. For example, it could be a straw bale wall, straw clay wall, a hempcrete wall, concrete wall, rammed earth, could be even stick frame construction. The main point is you have your wall and then an attachment point up here. In this case, my example, I am using a Cob wall. So this is a bond beam. And so this bond beam gives a very good attachment point for your roof. And here you see, this is a cross-section diagram, all of these. So you see our rafters coming down, sitting on the edge of the bond beam with that bird's mouth cut. Okay, so we got the rafters, we have a ridge beam up here, right at the ridge, and the other side of rafters branching off of that. So now we're going to talk about the ventilation and airflow through this roof. So the inside of the structure, you're going to have rising moisture. This moisture is going to rise up, and it's eventually going to make its way through the ceiling. This blue layer here is the ceiling, and through the insulation, and so then it eventually goes out the top. And then on the outside we also have airflow. This is one of the key points I want to make. So you want to have airflow through your soffit on the exterior of your building, and this air is going to flow up through the soffit, up through the entire ceiling, above the insulation, and then up out that ridge. So there's literally a hole in the top of your roof, basically, and that allows the airflow to go out the top. So it's really important to have at least an inch of empty space above your insulation layer so that the air can flow over the insulation, taking the moisture out and out the structure. So another point to make with your ceiling, I don't recommend putting a moisture barrier in the ceiling. I think it should be breathable. There's various opinions on that, but if you have a good roof ventilation system, I don't see any need to put a plastic vapor barrier or moisture barrier in the ceiling, because that's just going to trap moisture within your living space. You want that moisture to actually go up through the ceiling, through the insulation, and get picked up by the airflow and taken out of your roof. So the benefits of having a good roof insulation system, some of them are, well, basically it's not going to trap moisture in your ceiling. That's the main thing, because that moisture just builds up in your ceiling if there's no place for it to escape, and it's going to mold your insulation, it's going to mold your roof framing, it's going to mold your plywood sheathing or OSB sheathing on the top of the roof. Basically your whole roof is just going to decompose and degrade over time. You're going to have a lot of mold up there and just things that can't really be fixed unless you tore the whole roof off and redid it. So the airflow is extremely important in my opinion, and it's really pretty basic to have a good roof ventilation system. Now let's go over here and let's look at these two diagrams. Now these are, I've drawn these based on what I've seen in the majority of what I'd call Cob workshops or natural building workshops. This is what they do, and this is what they're teaching students. And this is not to knock on anybody specifically, but just so you know, if you're going to go out there and take a class on how to build a Cob house or a straw bale house or natural house or hempcrete, whatever it might be, this is probably what they're going to teach you, and it's not a good system for a long-lasting building. So let me show you what they do and the drawbacks to this system. Now I call this Oregon Cob style. This is kind of where it comes from, because this is how Cob buildings are done mostly throughout the United States. You'll see mostly little small Cob structures, or Cob huts, you might call them. This is how they structure their roofs. Okay, so this first one, you have your Cob wall. Now this Cob wall, the first main problem here is the rafters. They embed the rafters directly into the Cob wall, so there's no way for air to flow up through the soffit and up through their ceiling and roof. It's basically a closed system, and it's not a very good attachment in my opinion either. If you ever did need to replace the roof, you'd have to tear the whole roof out of the wall. It's not, in my opinion, a good way to do it. So the first problem is they close off from any outside airflow. You can't get any airflow through that system because it's completely walled off. And apart from that, they could have a normal, a good roof system, but because that walls and the soffit and the airflow is closed off, that's just a big problem. So then they have the indoor moisture rising. That moisture is going to rise. It's going to get into the ceiling and into the insulation, and it's going to basically build up inside your ceiling and your roof. And it can dissipate, it can escape, but it's going to be slow, and it's probably not going to be able to escape or dissipate fast enough, and you're going to have the same issues. You're going to have molding and degradation of your roof structure over time, just because you don't have that airflow going through there. Alright, now down here we have the living roof. This is a really interesting example. Again, we have a Cob wall, and that Cob wall, the rafters are embedded into the wall, so there's no airflow able to get through from the outside. The roof and the ceiling is a totally closed system. Now this living roof basically is kind of like a garden on the top of the roof. So you have to have an extra sturdy roof structure to hold that extra weight. The problem with this system, and there's a good example that happened a while ago with somebody. So with the living roof, a lot of people will put basically a plastic moisture barrier, and it's usually, it should be thick. So it's a thick plastic moisture barrier lining the top of the roof, right over top of your rafters and your plywood sheathing. So this is really bad because there's absolutely no way for air moisture to escape out the top of the roof with this system. There's no airflow through the roof, but even if there was, you can't even get the airflow out the top of the roof. So what happens with this is the worst. That indoor moisture starts to rise and build up. It gets in your ceiling and your roof, and it just has nowhere to go. And so it's just like, you know, just complete moisture, mold, degradation up in here. You don't see it at first, but it's happening. And what happened to one guy's building that I've heard about in the past, it was a Cob building. He did the living roof with the plastic water barrier on the top, and his walls actually started dripping water. So he had water dripping down the sides of his walls. And a lot of people were talking about this, and they were thinking it was a problem with a Cob home, that you have water dripping down the walls. And this is absolutely not the case. It's because there was no airflow in the ceiling or roof, and that water just, it was building up so much in the ceiling it started dripping down the walls. So don't connect that wall dripping to being a problem with Cob walls or Cob homes. That's not the case at all. In fact, Cob walls actually have hydric buffering. They can hold water and re-release it naturally to regulate the indoor humidity and moisture level. But in this case, it's just because there's literally no air. There's no breathable space. There's no airflow, and so that water just builds up in the ceiling and the roof over time, and can potentially start dripping down your walls. So these are just two examples of your typical Cob workshop style roofs that you'll see. And again, I'm not trying to bash on people out there that do beautiful work, but they don't have good roof ventilation. And if you want to build a Cob home that's going to last a long time, as most people do, that's why they build a Cob home, you need to have proper roof ventilation. Otherwise, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot for your project long term. So you want to do like this. Okay, you want to have airflow able to come up from the outside exterior of the structure up through your roof, and all that moisture needs to be able to be sucked out. As I'm building my structures, I usually just like to test and play around. Once I've got the roof up, before I've got the ceiling in, I'll stick my hand up here above the insulation, and it's just like a vacuum sucking the air all the way up here and then out. It's like a natural suctioning of air that occurs. So yeah, sorry I've been off camera kind of in this video. It's a little awkward in this small space filming here, but I hope you guys could see the whole board and see all the details. If you have questions, leave them down below in the comment section, and I'll try to get back to you on that as soon as I can. And I have lots of workshops coming up this spring and summer, so check my website, thiscobhouse.com, go to the workshops tab, and sign up for a class. We're going to go over all the roof ventilation details. I actually have already 2 or 3 buildings here. I can show you the system in action and the details of how to set that up. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.